Next assignment we are going to look at is called section 4.3, and we will understand quadratic functions and their properties. When we say quadratic functions, these are the functions they generate U-shaped graphs. So quadratic functions, their graph is no longer a line, and this is what their function, their graph looks like. Most basic quadratic function is f of x equals x squared. Okay, this is what an f of x equals x squared looks like. So this power of 2, this is called a quadratic term. By having a power of 2 makes the function a quadratic function. And if this is the highest power the function has, so we're going to call it a quadratic function. For quadratic functions, one of the most important things they have is called vertex. And then this is like a turning point. So the quadratic function here is decreasing all the way to vertex. And then all of a sudden after the vertex, the function is increasing. So the vertex, we label it as h comma k. And this is the upward parabola. So when x squared is a positive term, we will have an upward parabola. And then the vertex's y value will be the minimum. So when you have an upward parabola like this is going to be your minimum value, and you will have a minimum. But if you have the opposite case, this is the function, this is a quadratic function whose rule is going to look like negative x squared. So having a negative sign before the x squared just changes your graph to be a downward graph. And now you still have a vertex. All quadratic functions, they have a vertex here. But this time the vertex will represent the maximum value on the graph. And then here the maximum value will be the k value of the vertex. So downward graphs will have a maximum, and upward graphs, they will have a minimum. And when we talk about quadratic functions, when I have a function in the form of f of x is equal to x minus 2 squared plus 1, when we have that quadratic function represented this way, this is called vertex form. This is called vertex form of the quadratic functions, which means this number here will always represent the h, and this last number with the sign will always represent the k, okay? So for this function, the vertex will be at positive 2 and then 1. This will be where the vertex will be located for this question. So the vertex form for any quadratic function is, you might have some numbers that you're multiplying your x minus h. So this will be an a value. And then x minus h squared plus k. This is called the vertex form of a quadratic function. So when you have the function in this form, vertex will be equal to h and k. H and k will represent the vertex. So if I explain one more time, if I have a question like 2, parentheses, x minus 5 squared minus 1, okay, so I am going to match it with the formula. 2 is like the stretch, vertical stretch amount, which has nothing to do with the vertex. So this is not going to affect the vertex for now. And then x and x, they match. Negative sign and negative sign, they match. So that makes your h to be just 5. So h is just 5. And then the k is equal to a negative 1. So h is 5, k is equal to a negative 1. So for this question, vertex will be at positive 5 and negative 1. I want to give you one more example about this. So if I have another function, this can be any number here, it doesn't matter. But let's say this time we have here x plus 3 squared plus 1. If that's what I have, let's write the formula again. Quadratic functions or the parabolas, vertex form is a parentheses x plus h squared plus k. No, it's not x plus h, sorry. The formula is x minus h. So now this is a is 5, which doesn't affect my vertex. But this is x and this is x. The formula needs a minus, but this number became a plus 3. How did this happen? Because instead of plus 3 here, I can just write it as minus minus 3, because minus minus 3 still gives me a plus 3. So I didn't change the question. I just changed how the question looks. Now the first negative is going to cover the negative from the formula, and then h will be equal to a negative 3. So h will be a negative 3, and then k will be equal to a 1. So for this question, vertex will be a negative 3, a positive 1. So when we have quadratic functions, for the same function, I can either have this format, okay, or this same function, I can express it as x squared minus 2x plus 3. So when you happen to graph x minus 1 squared plus 2 and x squared minus 2x plus 3, they both will give you the exact same graph. But this is called the vertex form. And then this is called the general form. Now, each one has their own advantage. So this one, what do I like so much about this one? This one just gives me the vertex immediately, so I don't have to calculate it. Vertex is always the number I see after x and a minus sign. So the h value is positive 1 and the k value is 2. So I know that vertex is 1, 2, but I don't have the same information here from the other form. I don't know how to find the same information, the vertex to be 1 and 2. So it's not ready. I can't just look at the graph and find this answer. So we have formulas. When you have the general form, the h value of the vertex will be calculated as using the negative b over 2a. So here, a is how many x squares you have. So in this case, I have 1x squared. B is the number of x, so we have negative 2. And then C is 3. So according to this formula, A value is 1, B value is negative 2, C value is 3. So if I put this information to my H formula, I need negative B over 2A. So I need to change the sign for B. That's a plus 2. And 2 times A. So this will give me 2 divided by 2, which is 1. So I am checking the H value is also 1 from the vertex form. Now it's time to calculate the k value. All I have to do is plug in this number to the original question. So I need to calculate f of 1. So I will need 1 squared minus 2 times 1 plus 3, which would give me a 1 minus 2 plus 3. So 1 minus 2 is negative 1. Negative 1 plus 3 is 2. That's how I get the k value. Now I can put them together. H is 1, k is 2, and this is the vertex for this function, which is the exact same information that we got from the vertex form. Again, this is very advantageous here compared to this one if you're looking for the vertex. But this one gives me the y-intercept of the graph. Y-intercept is always the last number at the end. Y-intercept is 3. That means when somebody graphs this function, okay, it's going to touch to the y-axis at 3. And then this is how it's going to look like. But here, in order to find the y-intercept, first I have to set x to be as 0. Then I have to find the corresponding number. So I will need 0 minus 1 squared plus 2. That's a negative 1 squared. 1 plus 2 is 3. I still get y-intercept to be 3, but this one was a lot quicker. So this is called vertex form, and this is called general form. And all of these quadratic functions, they will always have the U-shaped graph, always, and we call them as parabola. U-shaped graphs, we call them parabola. And then the most basic quadratic function is f of x equals x squared. And we call this parent quadratic function, which is the most basic quadratic function, parent quadratic function. And from this function, you can derive so many versions of this. So when somebody says, I have x minus 1 squared plus 1, so they are going to both have the U-shaped graph, but this one, its vertex is at 0, 0. This one is going to be still a U-shaped graph, but the original graph, this one, which is the original graph will be shifted 1 unit to the right, and then it will be shifted 1 unit up. every single point on the graph will be shifted 1 unit to the right and then 1 unit up. So this vertex 0, 0, it's gonna be on 1 unit right, 1 unit up. So this will be the turning point for the graph. Instead of having the vertex at origin, now the vertex will be a +1 and +1, x1, y1. So this is the general information about quadratic functions. So if we now go back to the assignment and look at the questions, we're gonna just look at the assignments here, 4.3. We have 4 questions. The first question is, the graph of a quadratic function is called a vertex, square, line, or parabola. The only correct answer is the graph of a quadratic function is always called a parabola. Next question will be, we have this function given, x minus 2 squared minus 2. First thing they're looking is they want you to answer their vertex. Again, vertex, because this is in vertex form, I'm going to give my answer in a parentheses. H value is 2 because there's already just one negative here. So that negative covers the formula. So the H value is +2, and then the Y value is -2. So K is -2, H is +2. This will be the vertex. And then for this one, we also need to answer the axis of symmetry. Axis of symmetry is when your graph cuts in 2 equal pieces. When there is a symmetry line which cuts your graph into 2 equal pieces, that's called axis of symmetry. An axis of symmetry always starts with x equals, and then always take the number from your vertex. So x equals 2, which is a vertical line, will be the axis of symmetry for this equation. And then third part is the graph concave up or concave down? So when you have an upward graph, when you have a happy x squared, positive x squared, it's a concave up. When you have a sad function, which is a downward parabola, you will have a concave down. So in this case, x minus 2 squared is positive, so it will be a concave up graph. And then the last part is asking for the graphing tool. So I'm going to click to enlarge the graph. Let me make sure that I am sharing the graph this time. And then I think I was sharing it. So I am going to grab the vertical parabola tool. And then we're going to first start by locating the vertex. We know that vertex is +2 and -2. That's where the vertex is. So I'm going to just drop the vertex. And then I need to just locate one more point. I can just find another point by plugging a 0 for x. When I plug in a 0 for x, I get -2. So 0 is going to give me a +2. When x is 0, I'm going to get +4. So when x is 0, I'm going to get +4. This will be the second point. And then when I locate it, I can save. And when I check my answer, I might have a mistake on locating the second point. So let's just clear this again. And vertex is 2, -2. So we're grabbing the parabola and then +2 and -2. That's where the vertex is. Now, in the main function, let's just put 4. If we plug in a 4 for x, 4 minus 2 is 2, 2 squared is 4, 4 minus 2 is 2. So the 4 here is going to just pair with +2. So I'm hoping that this is 4, 2. And I believe there is no way to plot the point 4, 2. Let's check if this is correct. And then check. This time it's correct. So I just have to be careful when you're graphing. Make sure that you plot the exact same point. And then after the graphing done, we can move to the third question. which will be a very similar one. We just have a different function now, x minus 6 squared plus 4. So the vertex will be an ordered pair, so it's a turning point. H value is 6, and then the k value is 4. So the vertex is located at 6, 4. For the second part, axis of symmetry always starts with x equals, and then the first number from your vertex is 6. X equals 6 is the axis of symmetry. And third question is, because x minus 6 squared is a positive term, we're going to say that it's an upward graph. So we're going to be concave up. And now it'll be the graph time. So we are going to click to enlarge the graph. And I'm just going to make this bigger if possible. So I'm going to graph the parabola, take the parabola. First, we're going to locate the vertex, so 6 and 4. All right, then I'm going to just put one number more than the vertex. So when x is 7, what happens? So I'm going to go to the function, and I will place 7 minus 6 is 1, 1 squared is 1, 1 plus 4 is 5. So when I just go 1 extra, I'll be at 5. So 7, sorry, this will be a 7, 5. And now I can just save this and then check my answer. It will be correct. Last question. Now we don't have the organized form anymore, but they're still asking for the vertex for this question. So let's just go ahead and copy this question on a piece of paper to answer all the questions, and we can copy them on here. So it's no longer in vertex form. So answering these questions are not super straightforward. So I am just going to scroll down a little bit. Here, and then Control V. Okay, since it's no longer in vertex form, it's in general form. Let's identify the ABC here. A is the number of in front of x squared, so we have just 1x squared. B in front of the number for x, so it's 2. And C is -8. So these are the ABC values. For the vertex means always H and K. H will be always calculated using -b over 2a. So if b is 2, I will need the opposite of 2 here, which is just -2. And 2 times a is 1. The -2 over 2 is -1. So the vertex is going to start with -1. So we know that we are going to tell them that for vertex, it will start with -1. To find the k value, -1 will be just plugged in here. So we need f of -1. So we will need -1 squared plus 2 times -1 minus 8. So that's a +1. And this is a -2. This is a -8. So that's a -10. -10 plus 1 is -9. So these are the two numbers that they are going to make up the vertex. So vertex will be -1, comma, -9. Now to find the x-intercept, anytime you need to find the x-intercept, you always set your y to be a 0. You're going to set your y to be a 0. And y is always f of x. So we're going to set 0 is equal to x squared plus 2x minus 8. So this is a quadratic equation that we need to solve by using factoring. So I'm going to factor x squared plus x minus 8. Because this is an easy trinomial, my factors are x plus 4 and x minus 2. Because when I multiply these two numbers, their product is -8. And when I add them up, their sum is 2. And then when I set each factor to a 0, this gives me x equals -4. And when I set x minus 2 to be a 0, I will get x equals 2. So that means one of the x-intercept will be -4. And for x-intercept, the y value is always a 0. And the second intercept is x is 2. And then the y value will be a 0. So there are two x-intercepts on this function. The third question is, we're going to solve f of x is equal to negative 8 for x. What points on the graph? So we have this x squared plus 2x minus 8. And the question wants me to set this equal to a negative 8. So I'm going to move the negative 8 to this side as plus 8 and set it to 0. Now when I organize what I have x squared plus 2x. And then these two negatives will cancel out, will equal to 0. Now I want to factor what I got. These are the factors. And when I set this one to 0, I get x equals 0. And when I set x plus 2 equals to 0, this gives me x equals negative 2. So this means first point is x is 0 when the y value is set to a negative 8. And x value is negative 2 when the y value is set to a negative 8. These 2 points are on the graph. And then you can use this information to graph this. First, you can locate the vertex and you can locate one of these points. It doesn't matter which one you pick, and then you can connect with the graph using the MATLAB. This concludes 4.3 quadratic functions and their properties.